Hey, good morning, everyone. It's nice to finally get the project kicked off. I'd like to welcome you. I'm Brian Oakes. I'm your co-lead for this project, Hawaii Airspace Modernization Project, and the facilitator for today. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the shift from our in-person meeting in Hawaii to our virtual event. As you all know, we had to make a pivot. We were uncertain with the government shutdown and travel. And so we did feel it necessary to finally get this project off the ground and get moving that we wanted to execute. And so we decided to make this event virtual. So I apologize for any inconveniences that we have caused, making necessary adjustments for you. But thank you all for joining us virtually today. So standing here beside me, Mr. Chris Thomas. He's my National Air Traffic Controllers Association co-lead on this project. So Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. So good morning, everyone. As Brian said, my name is Chris Thomas. I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting today, and thank you all again for the quick transition to the virtual meeting that we have here. One quick housekeeping thing before we get started, just to make this really easy for Brian and I and for the project team, so that we can keep track of everyone that's attended and that we can have a really good, solid foundation on who we need to reach out to during future meetings. Up on the board is attendee sign in. If you guys could take a few minutes sometime throughout the briefing today to go ahead and put your name and organization into the chat. For our military personnel that are on with us today, if you could really put in there your facility squadron, where you're from, and that really goes for everyone. Just kind of helps us identify who you belong to and where we need to reach out to. Of course, phone numbers and emails, you need that information as well. But as I said, sometime throughout the day, if you could add that to the chat, there'll be other opportunities throughout the briefing. We'll show you at the end. There'll be other ways as well. We'll have an email address for you guys. So there'll be plenty of ways to get signed in, but if you guys can make sure you do that. Next slide, please.
Hey, real quick, Chris, I do see some folks raising their hands. We're going to address questions at the end in Q&A. If you have a question for the team, type it in the chat. We are monitoring that, not for the project, but if you're having technical difficulties, you need assistance in any way, something's not working, please use the chat function. We're not going to individually call on hands at this time. Raising hands, we will address those during the Q&A session and use that function. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. A little bit about the agenda. Again, as Brian said earlier, my name is Chris Thomas. I am the co-lead for this project. I'm an air traffic controller out of the Las Vegas TRACON. Been doing airspace projects for about 8 to 10 years now. So I'm super excited to get started on this project and get working with you guys to see what sort of changes that we can make for you guys out in Hawaii. But a little bit about the agenda. After I'm done here, you're gonna hear a little bit about the history of aviation in Hawaii. We have a short video to show you everyone for that. After that video is over, we'll hear from Terry Rea, who is our Western Service Center Director. Also, he is the SALT leader for this project as well. He will talk a little bit about airspace modernization and give some opening remarks. After Terry speaks, we'll hear from Raquel Gervin, who is our Western Pacific Regional Administrator. She'll talk a little bit about how we got here and how we are moving forward in this project as far as the outreach and community issues. We'll hear from our Director of Air Traffic Operations, Dan Putterball. He'll talk a little bit about the Hawaii NAS modernization and what we can expect from the modernization effort there. There's also some work currently going in place right now in Hawaii, and I think Dan will talk a little bit about that as well. We'll have another short video after we hear from those speakers about the overview of this project, and then Brian and I'll introduce you to the project team. And after we introduce you to the project team, Brian and I'll have an opportunity to go over the project with you kind of in detail a little bit more. After that, is over, that's the point where we will have question and answers. As Brian just alluded to, put your hand up, we'll get you down, get your question in the chat box. We're monitoring it. And we'll make sure that we try to come back and cover all of those before the project or before this briefing's over today. So if you have any questions or anything, make sure that you get that hand up in the chat.
Excellent. So real quick before we go over to the video there, Chris, it's a lot of new people have joined since I made the announcement. There are sign in the chat function box. There's plenty of examples in there. Just follow suit. Utilize that chat box if you're having technical difficulties, you have a question about hearing, etc. If you have a question in regards to the project and what you hear today during the briefing, utilize the Q&A function. And during the end, when we have our Q&As, we will call on those individuals that have raised their hands or have a question that they've inserted into the Q&A text box that you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So once again, we'll cover that a couple times. We just want any new folks that join to know where we're at and how we're going to proceed forward. So, hey, to get us all in the aviation mindset, here's a quick video on the history of aviation in Hawaii. Make sure you mute us and come off camera.
100 years, Honolulu has served as the aviation gateway to the Hawaiian Islands from points all over the globe. This makes HNL one of the busiest airports in the United States, with a rich civilian and military aviation history. Let's look at some of those moments and how they shaped operations today. It all started in December 1910 when the first powered flight occurred in Honolulu. This was followed in 1915 by the establishment of aeronautical regulations for Hawaii. Safety has always been incredibly important, and the FAA continues this today with its core mission to operate the safest airspace in the world. In 1918, the 6th Aero Unit was established at Fort Kamehameha, with the Army Air Station located on Ford Island, Pearl Harbor. Military installations continued to be built while civilian aviation was also starting to connect the islands. In 1920, the first commercial inter-island flight took place in Hawaii, departing from Kapiolani Park on Oahu to the Kahului Fairgrounds on Maui, with commercial and general aviation operations starting to take hold. On March 21, 1927, John Rogers Airport was dedicated in Honolulu at the current site of Honolulu International Airport. The event was remembered in the Honolulu Advertiser editorial to be the inauguration of commercial aviation in Hawaii. Inter-Island Airways was the first airline to establish commercial airline service at John Rogers Airport, flying to Hilo via Maalaea, Maui, and to Port Allen, Kauai. This was a busy year at the airport, which also saw the opening of numerous flight schools. 6 years after inter-island commercial flights started, in 1935 Pan Am launched its trans-Pacific flights from California to Oahu, which included weekly passenger service 6 days a week from San Francisco and Manila via Honolulu. The flight from Oakland to Oahu was 17 hours and 44 minutes. As the world's fascination with aviation blossomed, many notable aviators flew to the Hawaiian Islands, including Amelia Earhart, flying from Oakland to Wheeler Field. In 1940, Pan Am expanded its operations to include airmail delivery to New Zealand and Alaska. Up to this point, commercial air service was primarily done by amphibious craft, landing on the water. In 1950, Pan Am introduced the Strato Clipper, which flew from Los Angeles to Honolulu in 7 hours, 20 minutes. In each generation, aircraft were faster and more efficient, and 1959 saw the introduction of the jet age, which required new infrastructure, including a new terminal to accommodate these modern marvels. As aircraft became larger and capable of longer flights, they also needed longer runways. In 1977, the Reef Runway was constructed, which included taxiways and a bird habitat. The new runway was 12,000 feet long, which is over 2 miles long, providing the safety margins for jets to land and take off. Honolulu continued to grow to accommodate passengers and cargo, over 22 million passengers in 1991. This growth was supported in 1993 with a new inter-island terminal, which was to date the largest infrastructure project completed at the airport. As Honolulu grew, it was clear that a second airport was needed to relieve HNL of general aviation operations, including propeller and small jets. In 1999, Kalaeloa Airport opened to serve these aircraft, allowing HNL to focus on serving commercial and cargo operations. Air traffic control services also need to expand along with growing general aviation, commercial, and cargo operations. In 2002, the FAA opened a new air traffic control facility in Honolulu that covers all of the Hawaiian Islands and surrounding Pacific Ocean with a staff of over 200 air traffic controllers. Honolulu International Airport was officially renamed to honor Senator Daniel K. Inouye, serving the state of Hawaii for over 49 years as a senator and served in the Army during World War II. The need for goods, services, and tourism continued to grow throughout the islands, progressively outdating facilities at the airport. So in 2018, the Hawaii Airports Modernization Program launched, dedicating billions of dollars to modernizing airports across Hawaii, including Honolulu. In 2021, the new Mauka Concourse opened, which was the first major gate expansion since 1993. Daniel K. Inouye International Airport continues to be a destination for over 21 million passengers a year. The state of Hawaii and the FAA continue to upgrade facilities on the ground and in the air, including modern approach and departure paths that use satellites for navigation and continuing to upgrade airport facilities to provide a world-class experience.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Terry Rea, who is our Western Service Area Director and Chair of the Leadership Team. Terry, go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chris and Brian as well. So this has been a long time coming, and I echo the sentiments that were mentioned earlier, and I really wish we could have been there in person for this meeting. But nonetheless, I'm thrilled that we're finally moving forward with the scoping for the Hawaii Airspace Modernization Project. So today, we're going to start today's presentation at a higher level and then gradually move deeper into the specifics and kick it back over to Brian and Chris later on in the presentation. So to start off, though, first, what do we mean by airspace modernization? And this term has evolved significantly since we first started discussing this about 3 or 4 years ago. And at a national level, it now encompasses a broad spectrum of projects across the National Airspace System, or the NAS. This year as well, several new modernization programs are underway that you may have heard about. Programs like the brand new air traffic control system, which we'll touch on briefly later. Also, there's all different types of work going on as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill that was passed this year. And while airspace modernization effort is separate, it is interconnected with these other initiatives. And the optimizations we need in our airspace must align with the new equipment and systems being modernized to support the future of the NAS. But today, our focus is on the Airspace Modernization Roadmap, or AMR. And this roadmap outlines our strategic plan for evaluating and modernizing the NAS. It's a data-driven decision-making process designed to deliver widespread benefits for our stakeholders throughout the NAS, ensuring safety, efficiency, and reduced operational delays. So with that said, let's talk a little deeper about the process and what that means. Next slide, please. So when we say that it's a strategic data-driven approach, what we mean is that we want to move away from the single site and single procedure modernization efforts that we used to do and move toward the data-driven priorities that will offer more of a comprehensive and sustainable approach to how we modernize the NAS. This shift is going to allow us to streamline our efforts, minimizing the need to revisit a single site repeatedly for corrections or changes. And in order to achieve this, we will create portfolios for each of the facilities to understand their specific needs. And this will, as part of this process, we'll collaborate closely with both internal and external stakeholders to identify their needs and develop solutions that benefit everyone involved. As you'll hear later from Brian and Chris, This involves meetings with each unit, facility, and entity to gain firsthand knowledge of the operations. And this is going to ensure that we scope the project with the comprehensive understanding and not just from the FAA's perspective. The airspace infrastructure priorities that are identified through this will be based on a blend of both qualitative and quantitative data analytics. This will ensure optimal returns in terms of safety, efficiency, and then again, those reduced operational delays. The image on the right-hand side of this chart here, of this slide, is a representation of some of that quantitative data. And it's a compilation of statistics such as ops growth, level of star conformance, unstable approaches, TCAS, proximity events, and miles in trail data. And by combining the qualitative data along with the quantitative data, the service centers can then determine which projects and areas we need to address first. Next slide, please. And so continuing to drill down a little deeper, this chart details that workflow that I just touched on a little bit there. So across the top there, the Air Traffic Organization Strategy Directorate, they'll provide that headquarters level leadership and direction on strategic goals and priorities. And on the quantitative side, our strategy organization, again, in collaboration with MITRE, they'll provide us with the airport specific data. Some of those things that I just mentioned before, such as the operations, average time and level flight, average distance flown, various other metrics that will serve as a starting point to prioritize locations that would most benefit from some sort of an airspace modernization project. And then on the qualitative side of that, the service centers, in Brian and Chris's team that we mentioned earlier, they'll conduct those interviews with the various stakeholders to gather the most current knowledge on local issues. And then together, this portfolio of data will be provided to the Service Area Leadership Team, or the SALT. And the SALT will use all of this data to determine regional priorities and modernization schedules based on current and projected operations and associated needs within the service area. And if you're not familiar with the SALT, the Service Area Leadership Team, this team's made up of the Service Center Director, myself, the Directors of Operation from Air Traffic Services and Technical Operations, the Deputy Director of System Operations, as well as the directors from the Office of Airports and our regional administrators. And that's the process that we have followed thus far, which has led us to prioritize Hawaii as our first AMR location for the Western Service Area. And I believe up next, we're going to watch another short video on the aviation in and around Honolulu.
Hello, my name is Raquel Gervin. I'm the Regional Administrator for the Western Pacific region, which includes California, Arizona, Nevada, the Hawaiian Islands, and the U.S. territories in the Pacific. We're excited to share with you information about the operations in and around Daniel K. Inouye Airport. The FAA is currently studying and analyzing the airspace in and around the Hawaiian Islands as part of our ongoing modernization efforts to ensure we operate the safest and most efficient airspace system in the world. As this project evolves, this website will remain the best place to find information about our airspace modernization efforts in the Hawaiian Islands, including awareness of outreach events and opportunities to provide input. So please visit this page occasionally and help us share the link with your neighbors. I'd like to ask Ed Sniffen, Director of the Hawaii Department of Transportation, to say a few words.
Mahalo, Raquel. The Hawaii DOT operates 15 airports in Hawaii to keep our communities connected to each other and our economic opportunities. Hawaii DOT is proud to support the work of the FAA and the modernization of our airspace to ensure our islands are safely and efficiently connected. We're excited about the quality jobs aviation brings to Hawaii and the economic opportunities it drives. Mahalo for watching, and we look forward to bringing more information to you as the project moves forward.
Aviation has a rich, storied history on Oahu, starting with the first powered flight in 1910. Fast forward 100 years, and we're going to take a look at how aircraft operate today in the busy and complex airspace around Honolulu. The airport, known by its aviation identifier of HNL, is one of the busiest airports in the United States and accommodates nearly all types of aircraft, from light general aviation aircraft to large commercial and cargo jets, as well as military missions, as Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. Its current air missions include the C-17 Globemaster, F-22 Raptor, and KC-135. Just like a busy highway accommodates the smallest motorcycle to how large, oversized, and overweight trucks use the highway, this diverse mix of aircraft is coordinated to enter and exit the airspace by highly trained air traffic control specialists, handling over 316,000 aircraft operations in 2022. Helicopters transition in and out of the HNL airspace for news, emergency, sightseeing, and training operations. The majority of these operations fly in accordance with visual flight rules, using ground-based reporting points to transition in and out of the HNL airspace. Seaplane operations each have their own unique routes. While we understand helicopter operations may be a concern for the community, this project will focus on instrument flight procedures as part of overall airspace changes. Instrument procedures use onboard equipment to navigate. Following the FAA's Airspace Modernization Roadmap strategy, the FAA selects and prioritizes sites for airspace modernization projects based on opportunity, feasibility, and sustainability. The FAA determined the Honolulu airspace provides a great opportunity to advance our mission and ensure our national airspace system remains safe and efficient and meets the needs of the future. When an airport is constructed, the runways are built to align with the most common wind directions in the area. This is because aircraft take off and land into the wind to maximize performance and safety. In Honolulu, winds come from two primary directions, the trade winds from the east and Kona winds from the west. Aircraft operations at HNL are influenced by winds, terrain, and fire activity, including volcanic eruptions. This animation shows Honolulu has 4 runways. Each runway end is treated as a separate surface, so there are actually 8 runways. Runway identification is based on the magnetic compass heading the aircraft is facing as it lands or takes off. For example, runway 826 is oriented with a magnetic compass heading of approximately 80 degrees in one direction and 260 degrees in the opposite direction. If you drop the 0 at the end of the compass heading, you will get 8 and 26. Parallel runways are further designated with L for left or R for right as you approach or depart the runway. At Honolulu, there are 2 sets of parallel runways, runway 8 and 26, and runways 4 and 22. Aircraft will land and take off typically in one of 2 operational flows, identified by the direction aircraft are landing and departing, depending on the winds. We'll look at 2 examples of how aircraft operate during trade winds and represent how the airport is configured approximately 95% of the time and referred to as east flow. In this flow, aircraft typically land on runway 4 right and runway 8 left, and depart on runway 8 right and 4 left and 4 right. This animation shows a propeller aircraft landing on runway 4 right and a large wide-body aircraft landing on runway 8 left. As the jet descends to the airport to land on runway 8 left, it stair-steps down to the runway where it will descend, level off for a segment, then descend again to the runway, transitioning to the stable final approach. As this aircraft is landing, the propeller aircraft is also preparing to land by flying parallel to the runway, then turning to the final approach to land on runway 4 right. As you can see, the runways intersect. When aircraft land on runway 4 right, they may be involved in land and hold short operations, called lasso. This means an aircraft will land, then stop prior to runway 8 left to allow the other aircraft to land and taxi. The aircraft on runway 4 right will then cross runway 8 left and taxi to its parking location on the airfield. During the night hours, runway 4 right becomes the primary arrival runway for noise abatement. Another example of aircraft operations during trade winds are departures to the east. Aircraft depart and are given a heading to follow by air traffic control, which guides the aircraft to a published standard instrument departure, called a SID. These SIDs connect aircraft to the en route airspace system, guiding them throughout the islands and beyond. Arriving and departing aircraft are monitored by ATC to ensure they're maintaining the required separation, providing instructions to pilots to change headings or altitudes to ensure these separation requirements are maintained. As you can see, HNL is a complex airfield that requires precision planning and execution by air traffic controllers, pilots, and airport operations staff. This is accomplished through extensive training for air crews and ATC, using simulators and on-the-job training to create a predictable and repeatable environment that supports the FAA's mission of operating the safest airspace in the world. This video is part of a series highlighting aviation in the state of Hawaii. To see additional videos, please visit this website.
Hello.
At this time, I would like to introduce Raquel Gervin, our FAA Western Pacific Regional Administrator. Raquel, over to you.
Thanks very much, Terry. Your office has been spearheading this effort for quite some time, so I'm so excited to get to the stage. Aloha and good morning. My name is Raquel Gervin, Regional Administrator for the Western Pacific region, and I am equally sad that we are not there to meet with you in person, those of you who are in the state of Hawaii, but obviously we wanted to make sure that we didn't miss a beat, and so we are here meeting with you virtually instead. As I hope you all recognize, the FAA is always continuously evaluating and modernizing the national airspace to improve safety and efficiency. And as Terry showed in our new process, it became clear that when we looked at both our qualitative and our quantitative data, that modernizing of Hawaii's part of the NAS really needed to be a priority. So here we are, launching our airspace modernization strategy starting in Hawaii. Today, what brings us here today is the start of the scoping phase for updating and improving the airspace structure, which means procedures in and out of airports, as well as the airspace across all of the state of Hawaii and the surrounding oceanic airspace. It's a really, and by the way, also equipment. I think you'll hear a little bit more about the fact that equipment is potentially also an important and complementary to the efforts that we're doing here for the airspace modernization. So this scoping process is really an important step in us bringing you as our stakeholders for the first time here with the FAA to help you understand why we needed to make these changes, what are the things that we plan to do, the timelines that go with these plans, and the many opportunities that you will have to, starting with today, to provide input to the process. So let's go to the next slide, please. It's really in the stakeholder engagement sphere where my office plays a key role. I want to thank each of you for being here, because for today, we really invited a very broad set of stakeholders. So we invited elected officials at the local, state, and federal levels represented, together with a broad set of industry representatives, federal agency partners, and stakeholders representing important interests in Hawaii. I would like to especially thank Ed Sniffen and Ford Fujigami of the Hawaii Department of Transportation for the support they've already given us for this effort to date, including ensuring to make sure we had as broad an initial set of stakeholders invited to this meeting as possible. And we are really going to be counting on collaboration with them throughout this process. I would also like to thank the FAA team. On the left side of this slide, you will see that, you know, in addition to the folks who are engaging with you today on the screen, the fact is there's a whole FAA team represented by all the lines of business across the FAA behind the scenes, all mobilized to ensure the success of this project. So we are very much looking forward to hearing from you. I think now I'd like to introduce Dan Putterbaugh, Western Service Area Director for Air Traffic Services. And I would have to say there's no one better to spell out why we think it's important to make these changes in Hawaii, the benefits that they could bring, than Dan, because many of you may even recognize him as the former Air Traffic Services Honolulu District General Manager who was in Hawaii for a few years. So take it away, Dan.
All right, thanks, Raquel. I'm excited to be here today. It's an exciting time for the FAA and our Hawaii facilities. Again, I'm Dan Putterball. I'm the Air Traffic Services Director. I have responsibility for oversight of the western third of the country, all of our air traffic facilities, basically from Denver all the way west out to Guam and up to Alaska. And there's a lot of work being done today that I want to talk to you about on behalf of the FAA. The first one is, I'm sure you've seen in the news, we are doing supercharged max hiring. And that means we're bringing in more air traffic controllers into the system and are maximizing our FAA Academy and hiring new air traffic controllers as we speak, and even through the government shutdown, we continue to hire them. So that's going to help quite a bit. In addition, you probably heard in the news about our brand new air traffic control system, and I want to give you some updates on the work that's being done. Just this year in 2025, we did do 2 new tower simulator hardware and software installations, both at Maui and at the Honolulu control facility. So the work is ongoing. We do have multiple facilities. In fact, every facility in the state of Hawaii, including our federal contract towers, are slated to get new information display systems that the controllers rely upon for information about procedures, weather, etc. And those site surveys begin next year in 2026. In addition, Hilo and Maui will both be getting the new Surface Awareness Initiative tool. It replicates our surveillance equipment, ground surveillance equipment on the surface of the airport. We have one of those systems at Honolulu, but we do not have one at Maui or Hilo. Both of those are slated to begin work in 2026. One of the more groundbreaking advancements in terms of technology and equipment is the Terminal Flight Data Manager, which controllers refer to as electronic flight strips. Honolulu is scheduled as of this date to get electronic flight strips in 2028. We just installed that system in Seattle and earlier this year in Los Angeles. I've seen it in person. It is truly one of the game-changing technologies to air traffic that I've seen in a number of years. It makes things more efficient, safer, and it's just easier to work in a whole generation of workforce that is used to conducting work on phones and iPads, etc. Those type of things. This is that type of system. It's a touchscreen system that is modernized into our automation system. So excited to see that at Honolulu. In addition, we are also scheduled in the state of Hawaii for radio replacements, radar processor replacements. We're going to move off of copper landlines and over to IP protocol for our comm systems. It's just a very, very exciting time. And one of the major things, the first step that we had to go through before we even got into the airspace modernization, is a change in the platform or the automation platform that the radar controllers and even the tower controllers use in the state of Hawaii. So they are modernizing right now. There's a lot of work going on at the Honolulu control facility. If any of you have been out there recently, you'll see trailers surrounding the building as our technical operations crew is installing the equipment as we speak. And again, that's a whole new radar platform. It's slated to go operational in July of 27 with a full implementation by April of 2028. So major progress for us, because without that equipment, we're not connected with all the other new tools coming into the system. And today we use a system called Micro eArts in the state of Hawaii. And it'll be nice to get upgraded from that old system into this newer system that connects to all of our new technology. And then, of course, what we're talking about today and what we're kicking off today is changes to our procedures as well as our airspace. So generally, just an overview of that, the project team that is coming in, they're going to evaluate the need to create, amend, or even decommission instrument flight procedures at all of the airports in the state, not just Honolulu. The procedure development accounts for community needs and concerns as best as possible while also making them safer. The airspace, the project team will evaluate the need to modify our regulatory airspace over Hawaii. That includes Class A, Class B, Class C, Class Delta, and Class E airspace, all of which we have in the state. And then they're also going to identify the airspace congestion points and find ways to make it safer, more efficient throughout the state. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. I want to show you some of the work that's being done. So you're seeing two images here. The one on the left is our older equipment, and the one on the right shows you some of our newer modern equipment. A couple things I'll call your attention to. Up on the top of the photo on the left, you see a white map. Today, the controllers are using that system, which is backlit with a light bulb. It's very, very old, probably in the range of 35 years old in our old facilities. And we've now moved over to what you see on the right, which is digital displays of the routes, the various fixes on the airways as traffic is coming over from the West Coast or even from Asia. And you're also seeing a bigger, wider screens, just better technology overall. And that's we're just scratching the surface. We still don't have all of it completely installed at this point, but it is underway, and it's a very exciting time. As I said, this new equipment on the right attaches and talks to all of the new equipment that we're bringing in. And then also, if we can go to the next slide, I'll show you the work that we have been doing with the Kaena Star, which we turn on November 27th, just about, I would say 9 days from now, this will be turning on. We've put together this airspace modification in collaboration with our Department of Defense partners. We appreciate the work. It was a long time coming. What you see depicted in red on both screens here are images of the warning areas just to the north and northwest of Oahu. And what we've been doing over the past several years or even a decade, when the traffic density from the mainland start coming over to Hawaii and we pick up in traffic, we oftentimes have to go around the North Shore. The way the airspace is designed today, it oftentimes precipitates our need to shut down the warning areas, and it impacts the mission of our DoD partners because we need it for the safe and efficient travel of the commercial aviation traffic coming around. And so what we have designed in the image to the right here in yellow is a tunnel that goes through the warning areas that allows the DoD to continue their mission without interruption from us and allows us to safely route high demand traffic around the North Shore as we pick up the volume. And we can safely run both commercial operations and military operations and both achieve our mission. It'll include the implementation of climb descend via clearances to optimize airspace utilization. It'll make it more efficient for our airline partners and also save on gas and greenhouse gases. This also improves access to the warning area for both the Navy and the Air Force for their training and large force exercises. So it's exciting work that's already underway, but the next two gentlemen that I'm going to turn it back over to are going to brief you on the larger airspace project throughout the entire state and some of the work that we plan on doing by engaging and collaborating with all the groups that Raquel just identified. So we're looking forward to it. It's an exciting time and it's finally here, and I'm glad that we're able to kick it off and introduce it today. So without further ado, I will turn it back over to Brian Oakes and Chris Thomas to talk about what this is going to look like.
Hey, thanks, Dan, Raquel, Terry. Appreciate your leadership, your drive to get this modernization project off the ground. Let us begin the work and the engagement process that's going to drive us through the next couple of years. So again, here we're the project co-leads. I'm the Airspace Modernization Manager. My NACA partner here, Chris Thomas. We are the face of the project. At the end, you will see an email address that will come to both of us. So if you have any questions, concerns over the duration, just looking for some information, feel free to message us, and that will be captured at the end. So we'll give you opportunity to write that down. So, but before we jump in, we have a lot more new people that have joined since the start. And so I just want to go over some of the admin stuff again so everyone's aware. So down at the bottom of your Zoom link, you got a chat box. You can see in there, everyone's putting their contact information. Utilize that chat box for updating your contact information. Utilize the Q&A box that's down there for specific questions that pop up about the project. If you have any questions, we're going to be taking those at the end. Allow everyone time to formulate those questions, get them written in there, as well as raise your hand at that time when you see the question slide come up, and we will systematically walk through that and answer those questions that come over verbally, as well as in the Q&A chat box. This meeting is being recorded. I saw a couple messages that came across asking that. So it is being recorded and we'll post to our website that you heard Raquel talking about. That website is not updated due to the government shutdown. We were not able to get that piece done. We have submitted all the paperwork and documentation for it. And within the next couple of days, that website will be published on the FAA's website. We'll walk you through it a little bit later, what it looks like. And this video will be on there as well as another mechanism to review and share your information. So without further ado, we'll go to the next slide there, Elizabeth. All right, see at the top here, we are your project co-leads. We have a lot of people that are on this team driving the train from the background, working diligently across there. Don't need to read everyone aloud, just wanted to highlight that it is a large project and we have a lot of people working, and that's within our circle here. What this means is this team will be working with all of you all throughout the process. And so when we're talking Honolulu, we'll have subject matter experts from there joining our project team. When we're talking Maui, we'll have subject matter experts from that facility in that region joining us. We will be bringing in a multitude of people over the course of the project with various ways that folks are going to contribute and help our project team come to a successful implementation. Next slide.
So thanks, Brian. Yeah, and I just want to stress the importance and the excitement that I have for the kickoff of this project, because the gathering of that project team really brings in those resources that we ultimately wouldn't have otherwise. So it's very exciting to have that team put together and ready to go for you guys. So a little bit about I'll talk a little bit about the overview of the project just a sec. We'll go through the 5 phases of the project on the next slide. Talk about those a little bit in detail, but obviously we're in phase 1, which is the scoping phase today. We'll talk about and define what the geographic boundary of the airspace is going to be. That way it'll give everyone an idea of what the actual scope of the airspace that we're going to be looking at it is going to be, and you'll see it's pretty significant. The estimated timelines, which is always one of the tough ones to get to, but we will talk about the timelines and some of the challenges that we face on timelines and how we plan on trying to work through those to smoothly incorporate our project from the start to the end. And then the engagement opportunities, and Brian spoke about that just a little bit, but everyone on this call at some point is going to have some engagement opportunities. This is our project. It's not the FAA's. It's a project that we need to build for the betterment of the Hawaiian airspace. So if you go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the process.
All right, so this is it. We got 5 phases of the project. We'll walk through them all. We start with scoping. It's defining the project objectives. How are we going to do this? So in that chat box, we've asked all of you for your information, your squadron, your unit, who you represent, your contact information. That's one way we're going to make these contacts to form these subject matter expert groups that we're going to pull into our project team. We also have a Google form that you'll see at the end of the presentation where you'll be able to walk through and provide input and concerns. So what information are we looking for? What are our concerns, issues, risks? So things that we know: unstable approaches, Class Bravo excursions, old standard instrument arrival routes, STARS, and standard instrument departure routes, SIDS, and their designs, the limited use of performance-based navigation procedures, limited use of those STARS and SID conformance, TCAS RAs, airspace complexities, both FAA and our partners at the Department of Defense, oceanic airspace connectivity, inter-island routes, Victor Airways, Tango and Q routes, oceanic routes, diverse vector areas off of airports, looking at runway use plans to enhance safety and efficiency, evaluating airspace and any required modifications to the Honolulu Class Bravo, the Maui Class Charlie, all of the Class Delta and Echo airports that are on the Hawaiian Islands, evaluating our special use airspace to identify opportunities to enhance and support the DoD mission, the Department of Homeland Security mission, our civilian flight operations. So our project team is going to take all of this information that is provided during the scoping phase and evaluate it, create a scoping document that will lead us through the rest of the project. So your input is absolutely valuable and important to the next stages as we begin walking through this. So after scoping, that comes solution development. It's where the FAA develops an initial design which is operationally feasible. So we use that scoping document to modify all the types of airspace: Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, reducing the risk of proximity events, increase in efficiencies, ensure procedures are appropriately contained, developing procedures, reducing unstable approaches, provide for climb and descend via availability, optimizing for efficiency and conformance, reduce vectoring for the controllers, increase in predictability, repeatable paths for aviators, reducing risk through fewer control instructions and potential for human error, and supporting national defense. And so during this solution development, the very first thing we'll touch is the instrument flight procedures. Chris, can you talk about the differences in a lot of these folks that are familiar with Metroplex and where we were at, and how we're going to walk through instrument flight procedure design under our new processes?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. That's a good question. For a lot of you that are familiar with how the FAA or how we did large scale airspace projects in the past, we really focused on building just new instrument flight procedures, upgrading the old conventional classic SIDS and STARS into the new RNAV procedures. And that's really only what we focused on. But as you can see in this project, the scope of this project is much, much bigger. So we're going to be looking at many more things. So in doing so, one of the most important factors in this project is getting the SIDS and STARS correct, and then building the airspace to contain those SIDS and STARS. So what we will anticipate and what you can expect to see is we'll go out to facilities, we'll go out to users, we'll go out to any interested parties and develop work group meetings to build those SIDS and STARS. We'll do that for all the airports in Hawaii. And once we're completed with the SIDS and STARS, what's going to happen is we'll have to set those on the shelf for a month or two, probably. And as we get our airspace and everything designed around those procedures. So the timing and the way that we structure everything will be a little bit different, but there's definitely more steps into the AMR process as there was in the plan. So that's a little bit of the overview on the IFP.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things to capture, right? We build the instrument flight procedures, and then we have to utilize that and go through the rulemaking process, and then come back and fine tune those procedures to make any adjustments to them. And so for industry, you'll see when we come up on our schedule what those engagement opportunities look like for that process. And so we get into evaluation phase. And so that's just more solution development, because now we're walking through the various pieces of creating the airspace through rulemaking. And so this is where we conduct operational validation of the initial design, but that's a long process. We take the public input, we begin the environmental review, we walk through the safety risk management panel at a certain point of this phase. But it's all comes down to this long, lengthy process of rulemaking. And so on the timeline, we'll cover that a little more in depth, but this evaluation phase will take a couple years to execute. And so that's where we're talking about from the instrument flight procedure design and solution development until we get a little further in the evaluation phase and circle back to sit down again with industry and those work groups to finish and fine tune the instrument flight procedure design. And so from that process, we go into implementation. What does that mean? That's where we flip the switch on implementation. We have our new flows, our flight procedures are in place, our airspace, everything is ready to implement and chart and publish that we've developed through the solution development and now gone through rulemaking, and we're ready to chart and publish instrument flight procedures, airspace, and make the holistic change in one process. And so after that, people familiar with Metroplex, we do have a post-implementation. And so we will have reserved slots for instrument flight procedures so that anything that was identified post-implementation or later in the process that we are too far in the process for environmental to now make changes, those will come post-implementation. Anything safety related, obviously, will NA it when it goes published so that we don't have any of those areas that we step on landmines and create a risk into the national airspace system. But post-implementation, we come and we clean up anything of unintended consequences that during our development and implementation were just overlooked by the entirety of our subject matter experts, our project team, industry, the public, etc. We come back and we make those changes post-implementation.
Brian, can I add something?
Absolutely.
Post-implementation. For a lot of people that have been a part of the bigger projects, one of the big lessons learned I think we've taken away from Metroplex was the post-implementation piece. We know with changes this big, there's going to be additional changes that need to take place. We really want to focus on this AMR setting up and getting in front of those changes so that we're not stuck after implementation, just left with a broken procedure. So we're going to take those lessons learned out of Metroplex, make sure that we have the ability and opportunity to make any sort of corrections in post-implementation so that
we're prepared.
We're prepared and you guys get the procedures in.
Yeah, that's a great point. And another lesson learned is exactly what we're doing today. Letting people know what we're doing, what our timeline is, what the project looks like, so that everyone has expectations and no one's in the blind. And so lots of lessons learned, adjustments over the years, and it's great to finally be here and kick this project off. Next slide. So here we talk about our geographical boundary. So we're going to determine the study size for those environmental gurus out there. Our study size is what we look at, but we're going to be talking to everyone starting out across all the islands. That's why we've invited everyone from all the entities and facilities out there so that you can provide your contact That information will be evaluated during the scoping phase. And ultimately, what comes out of the geographic boundary depends on what makes it into our scoping document and what we can actually make effective change on. And so the geographic boundary could shorten from this, but we wanted everyone to make sure we are holistically looking at the entire Hawaiian Island airspace and proceeding forward with that as our initial scoping boundary. Next slide. So here you see, this is probably where a lot of questions are going to come from everyone in attendance today. A tentative project schedule of this magnitude, it's estimated 5 to 7 years. And it really drives, you see the 5 phases there. Excuse me. That's our scoping, solution development, evaluation, implementation, and post-implementation estimated timelines. One of the real key pieces we want to take away from today's meeting for everyone that's in attendance is those green dots that sit above each phase. Those are engagement opportunities, not specifically for every single person, but every single person will have a green dot associated or multiples with where we're at. And so for today's, where we're kicking off this scoping phase, the Google input form that we are going to be covering here in a little bit, that is where everyone can submit their ideas, their solutions, their concerns, their issues, and help us get to a scoping document that we can then develop a proposal that can move forward. And so just a very key piece of the pie, and that's for everyone here in the scoping phase. Solution development, multiple spots here. This is where we get into taking into consideration instrument flight procedures, known community issues. When you get into that Google form, you're going to see, we'll walk you through it. There's going to be spots to talk about your concerns as a community. And this is where we will start addressing those as we get a little further into our instrument flight procedure development. Industry, you're going to be involved in our IFP, PBN full working groups. You guys know those terms. We're going to sit down collaboratively with Honolulu, with Maui, and invite the industry to help us design those procedures and work through that process. Again, known community concerns will be worked throughout this solution development phase. Chris, you already talked about the differences where we're in the Metroplex and that. This is where it's going to come into play. You're going to see some of those things Chris talked about. We're going to hit industry. We're going to hit the community concerns. And then obviously all the air traffic concerns are going to be a part of our work groups and subject matter experts.
One more thing to add on that,
Yes,
just to bring everybody up to speed and get everybody on the same page. The way we used to do work group meetings in Metroplex, where we would start and we would work for months, week after week. Obviously, the scope of this project is much larger. So I think that type of interaction will probably not be the same. But what you will probably expect to see from us, or what you can expect to see from us, is to reach out individually to bring those groups together. When we're talking about specific areas, let's say Maui, for instance, we will put a team together of interested parties in Maui, and we'll build those procedures, and then we'll move forward from there. So it won't be a start and then a big long process, then we stop. But we'll be working a lot of different work group meetings throughout this phase.
absolutely. I like how you keep highlighting that, Chris, because it really leans into we're going to be engaging, and then that piece is going to sit on the shelf because we haven't done massive projects like this where we don't only change flight procedures, but we come in and do airspace, and that airspace is a longer process.
That's right.
And work through that rulemaking, and then we circle back, and then we touch base again with all of our work groups that are doing the instrument flight procedures and performance-based navigation design. And so just keep highlighting it. If you're out there in industry and you're feeling like something's been delayed and you're not a part of additional pieces of the evaluation phase when we're about to talk to here for more engagement opportunities, reach out to the email that you're going to see at the end. Ask Chris and I where we're at. we're more than happy to get on the phone and have a conversation and engage back to make sure that everyone stays engaged and on the same page as we move forward. And so in the middle here, more opportunity for engagement during the evaluation phase. So this is, again, really details into the environmental kickoffs and the rulemaking phase for airspace. And so during the rulemaking phase for the Class Charlies and the Class Charlie, correction, and the Class Bravo, you're going to see an ad hoc committee formed. We will, as the FAA, we will have our initial airspace design that we create as subject matter experts, FAA only. We then take that and we request a concerned aviation group. We will be utilizing the HDOT's aviation department to help us facilitate. They stand up a ad hoc committee. They take it off of the FAA's plate and they create a committee that's made up of interested aviation parties, users of the airspace that make up general aviation, commercial, airport operators, everyone that uses the actual airspace to fly their aircraft and control that airspace itself. We, the FAA, we come in first meeting. We do attend those meetings, but the very first meeting, we brief our proposal to the committee. The committee then digests that. They elect a chair to run that committee. And the goal of that is to evaluate the FAA's proposal and provide input back to the FAA that would benefit industry or general aviation, et cetera, so that we can make adjustments during this evaluation phase to better fine tune the design to move forward. And so industry, you're going to be involved in the airspace design during the ad hoc committee. The next phase we move into during this is the informal airspace meetings. So industry folks out there, you've seen these as we've done airspace changes in the past. Informal airspace meetings is posted in the Federal Register. It's an opportunity for everybody, public, elected officials, stakeholders of every level to provide input back to the FAA via a 60-day public comment period that is in the Federal Register to help us formulate an even better proposal to take to our Notice to Propose Rulemaking phase, NPRM, which again, for everybody out there, is another opportunity, a 60-day public comment period to respond to the FAA's airspace proposal. At the same time, during this evaluation phase, you're going to see the environmental review kick off. You're going to see Federal Registry entries with public comment periods for draft environmental review documents. We will host public workshops that everyone is entitled to come voice their concerns over environmental issues, etc. Everyone is aware and seen those processes work, but this is just another opportunity where we're highlighting and showcasing the engagement opportunities that we're putting out there and utilizing in this very large airspace modernization project, from instrument flight procedures, environmental, and airspace changes that are happening. So then we get into implementation. It's a little smaller piece, but we'll be out there doing outreach with industry, making sure everyone's aware. We'll have all the instrument flight procedure changes that everyone has already been working through and training on. But here we are.
Go teams.
Yeah, go teams, various entities joining the project team, being on site, everyone trained in implementing this enormous project and going. And then post-implementation, we talked about that piece as we evaluate what happened. Various entities will have our emails still open, opportunities to comment. This isn't working. Industry will have their way of alerting us to flight procedures that need adjusted, et cetera. So just the takeaway from this slide, this is a very large project. we don't do this in the FAA, and now we're standing it up and we are doing it. Estimated 5 to 7 years and multiple opportunities of engagement throughout the course of this project from today all the way through after execution for engagement opportunities for all the entities that sit here today, to include the public that to various opportunities for them to weigh in. Next slide.
So this slide right here really kind of highlights who our stakeholders are for this project. It might not be all encompassing, but it's pretty close to the list of people that we plan on reaching out and working with. So obviously the airspace users, air carriers, cargo carriers, general aviation, business aviation all have a very big and important role in the Hawaii airspace change. DoD and DHS, HDOT, elected officials, and the public all play an important role to our external stakeholders.
Thanks, Chris.
Excellent.
All right. This is our user input form. This is a live QR. You can scan it now, save it to your phone. You can start working through it now if you choose. We're going to walk you through what this form looks like. But this is where everyone that's in this meeting, that you forward this website to click on this link on the website, can go and access and provide information to our project team that will help us scope this project and accommodate all known issues out there that we can make into this project and that are feasible to execute. So Elizabeth, you can bring this form up. We will walk through it. So here we are. We have the Hawaii Airspace Modernization Project input form. You're going to click that link. You're going to type in your email address. That's a required field. Notice the asterisk there. And so from there, you get to choose, are you an aviation stakeholder or are you community and public stakeholder? We'll walk through each one separately. So first, aviation stakeholder. There's some different boxes to fill out here, but you'll click next. You'll go through the form. And so then, which aviation organization are you representing? If you're multiple, we can come back. Can you select multiples in this scenario, Elizabeth?
Don't know. I think mine just
No, just
Okay, so in this scenario, you can select one. We'll talk about how you can circle back if you have another representative, if you represent more than one organization here. But select your organization. If it's not listed, select other. There will be opportunities to type in and expand on where you're from and what your concern is. Next. All right. Airline organization. If you chose that, you're going to have a subset here. Select who you represent. If you select one of the other entities, there's other check marks to circle to check in there. So very self-explanatory. We just want to highlight going through there. So for this side of the house, the aviation, last name, first name, it's a required field so that we can reach back out, further questions. When you select the other one, you'll see it's not mandatory for the community to put their names in. We do recognize the difference there. Optional for phone number. We have your email address. So if you want to put your phone, the project team, and that's the only people this goes to is the project team, and we'll reach out to have further conversation. And so what's your comment? What's your concern? We've got some pre-selected list here to choose from. If it's not there, select other and free type it into one of the boxes. Where is your location? Important. We're going to utilize this information, bucket it into an Excel spreadsheet so that we can evaluate holistically everything that's happening on Maui. What are the concerns on Maui? All of these that were selected, and then further break it down. Was this airline industry? Was this community? Was this industries, et cetera? And so choose that here. Be in specific, your location details. This is very important in the process, just helping us further define where we're going to need to engage and what part of this island that we need to address. And then optional description of improvements, your proposed improvements or solutions. It's always best to offer your improvements and solution to it. And we don't have every answer. And so utilizing that function can help us create a better solution, a better strategy moving forward, a better scoping document that will define our project. And this is what we're going to try and fix and how. Absolutely, Chris. More detail, the better. So for aviation, when you go through it, you see this is back to the beginning. For aviation, you can now enter a second issue under that piece. Once you roll through it completely again the second time, it's going to ask you to submit. At that point, if you still have more to offer, just go back through the process twice or again or a third time. So every time you go into the process for aviation, you can funnel through it twice. So that's the difference in what we're doing for the aviation and for the public, two separate pieces to the backside program. So we're going to work through it real quick. You'll see what the submit looks like, and we'll get to that to the next answer. And so if you have any other optional feedback or questions for the FAA, this is where you're going to do it. And then you press submit, and it will come to us and be distributed into this Excel bucket list for us.
Want me to submit now, or do you want to wait?
No, we don't need to submit. We can clear form here. And so we'll walk through the other side of the form. Once again, we're back. If you just scan that QR, we're back at the initial page that populates your email address. And now you're going to enter the community and public stakeholder section. Who are you representing? Just like aviation, we've got a pre-selected list. You can see there that it covers. If there's other, in the open text box, just detail who you're from. Who do you specifically represent? Your organization, your HOA, your neighborhood. Very beneficial as we're going through what Chris talked about with the instrument flight procedures. Part of that new process is addressing known community concerns, right? And you saw what some of those options in there are to choose from, or you're about to see. That's going to be very important as we design these. You have the opportunity to put your issue out there so that the FAA can address known community concerns. And you see here the comment category. There's options to choose from. If other, it's not categorized, utilize one of the text boxes that are upcoming for additional information. What's the type causing your concern? If it's unknown, type it out in the text box for us. Again, more detail better helps us understand holistically what the problem is. Where are you located? Just like the other side of aviation, very important. Make that selection known. Where are you at? Help us identify. And then again, being as specific as possible to help us nail down, because feet matter. And again, description of your existing area and any solutions or improvements that will help the FAA and our stakeholders come to a achievable solution. And so here you get that last opportunity, optional feedback or questions for the FAA. And then there is no second turn here. You have to press submit. If you want to enter again, scan the QR code back to the beginning and do it all over again. And another entry will be bucketed for us. And so the way that this spits it out to us to identify, it was just providing us a better opportunity for twice through the aviation side, once through here, because the concerns and issues are separate, and it helps us better identify what the exact issue is. Yes, great highlight here. We are accepting comments on this Google input form until January 31st, 2026. At that point, that QR code, this link won't work. We'll update the website to highlight that, but we have to put an end to it so that we can now start formulating and evaluating all of this input that everyone has provided, bucketing into the right pieces for us to evaluate, so that we can then move along in the scoping phase to create the scoping document that we can then up-level to the FAA for approval to allow us then to enter into the solution development. So January 31st, 2026, it's a key piece. This Google input form, you can save it now on the QR, you can forward it. It doesn't matter. There's no restrictions on who it's going to. You see that every entity is available to enter into those, whether you're aviation or community and public. And so this link as well will be on the website, as we talked about earlier, and we're about to highlight that website. Yes, it is here on the form. This will be on the website going forward. In the next couple days, you will be able to click on that link, not this link, but the website. And you'll see it here coming up that we do have the website. This information is just not loaded there yet. In the next couple of days, that will happen now that everyone is back to work at the Federal Aviation Administration and able to make that change to the website and get this information uploaded for us. All right.
We're out of order again.
No problem. So here's our project contact information. You see on the right-hand side, when you click on that link that's in the middle top left, that's going to take you to the home page that has airspace and airport projects. But at this time, it starts with Metroplex and goes down. What we're adding is that airspace modernization link so you can click on Hawaii. But take the time now, write this email address down, 9-HAO-Hawaii-airspace modernization at faa.gov. That email address will come to Chris and myself, as well as the rest of my project team that we talked about earlier, so that we can formulate a response, make contact, get back in touch. If you have a question, that's where it's going to come. We will be sending out this link through all the contacts that everyone's provided. When this is over and it's closed out, tomorrow morning, the owners of the Zoom link will send the project team all the contact information that was put into that chat box. We will then formulate a response back to everyone that has the website link, so that you have our email address and the web link to click on, which will host an overview of what airspace modernization is. It will host this briefing and all future briefings in the future, as well as that QR link to input into our Google input form. And so thank you for your patience that it's not updated today. We've been working diligently to get that message approved and get it updated. And we expect that any time over the next couple of days that this will go out. But tomorrow morning, we will provide this link. It will come from that email address that is there, and it will show you the way to access all of this information in the future.
Cool.
All right. Questions. We are going to utilize the Q&A box at the bottom, as well as once we get through those, we will address hand raises, we will unmute your mic, and we will ask you to speak. So if I could bring Dan, Terry, and Raquel back on screen, we will funnel questions appropriately to each level and address them how to whoever can answer that question best. Don't hesitate to Dan, Terry, Raquel, right, to speak up. If Chris and I are not on point, we're here to be corrected as well, so not a problem. And so, Courtney, can you walk through our Q&A text box, please?
Yeah, certainly. Would you like the names?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. First question, how does the FAA plan to address community noise concerns? If so, at what stage in the process will you incorporate community feedback slant noise model?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. First one out of the box, swinging for a home run. And so you saw in our presentation, we're in the scoping phase. That Google input form goes to everybody, community, elected officials, everyone can answer it. You saw on there, one of the check boxes is noise concerns. Describe it. Part of the instrument flight procedure, SOP, is to address known community issues. Can we address everything out there? Absolutely not. We do have airplanes, efficiency, safety, but we are evaluating, we're looking at that. So not only now, but in the future when we circle back to it and we're designing that piece, that's where we will address those concerns. Raquel, anything to add on to that?
Thank you. I think, Brian, the only thing I would add and maybe emphasize is, clearly we want people's input and absolutely want to make sure that we're hearing the community's concerns. But we also, I think you noted, that safety will always serve as our North Star. And so sometimes between safety considerations and competing interests, we were just not going to be able to accommodate everybody's input, but for sure we are doing our best. We will be doing our best to take them into account. I just want to make sure that we inject a little bit of the realism. Unfortunately, that is part of the process, because we're still going to need to get the airplanes in and out of airports safely and efficiently. And so I think there'll be some times in which we really won't be able to accommodate things. But I think we have a great opportunity, and we are really looking forward to getting the input from the communities. Over.
Thank you, ma'am. Court, next question.
Will the new airspace and IAP designs include EOR, established on RNP, separation standard to the parallel runways at Honolulu?
Yes.
Will you be able to incorporate space-based ADS-B surveillance and or SATCOM to reduce oceanic separation standard, or is oceanic airspace beyond the scope of HAM?
It is not beyond the scope. We are looking at interconnectivity between Oakland and Hawaii, and we will be evaluating those. Please utilize that Google form, input that, and as well, if that's coming from industry, industry will be involved in our IFP PBN design work. Next question, Court.
All right. Will this project address oceanic coordination? For example, requested cruise altitude that is done via legacy or gate hold procedures with clearance delivery at all the Hawaiian airports. There is a lot of opportunity for improvement in this area.
That's certainly something that should be explored. I don't know the ins and outs.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Dan, do you have any insight into that piece? BNATs, ERAM, there's a lot to this question.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the problem that's being described. It is very archaic how we do it now. So the short answer to it is the ERAM implementation that I showed at the early part of this presentation opens the door for the connectivity of the TFDM, which is the Terminal Flight Data Management System, or the electronic flight strips, which is also connected into our time-based flow metering. So it opens the door for everything, which connects to FMS in the cockpit, allows and opens the door for controller pilot data link and all those things that we don't currently have. So the answer is yes. With the brand new air traffic control system and the automation platform upgrades, it creates a lot of viability for fixing legacy problems in the Hawaiian Islands, of which this is very much one that's archaic and difficult to manage the requested altitudes at clearance delivery that go into oceanic airspace.
Thanks, Dan. Court, next.
What are the expectations from the Navy in regards to the warning areas? Is the plan to work with the flows around the current warning areas, or is there an intent to change the warning areas to support the flows?
That's a great question. And I think it's all of the above. And so that's why we asked for the contact information, right? We want to sit down and talk to those entities, absolutely on the warning areas, some of the other restricted areas and stuff that do touch a piece of flows. But if there is a benefit to all entities and DoD and the FAA that we can work through, that is on the table. It's not a for sure that it will happen, but it is on the table to have the conversation and sit down and talk at a high level as to, is there opportunities to benefit the Hawaiian airspace as a whole to include special use airspace?
Just as we did with the Kaina Star.
Absolutely.
That's about to implement in a few days.
So if it impacts the flow and it's beneficial, there's a path forward.
What is the difference between a Metroplex effort and the Hawaii Airspace Modernization?
So I can answer that one. I think the sheer scale really is the biggest difference. In Metroplex, we talked about it earlier. We really only had the opportunity to redesign SIDS and stars. We didn't have the opportunity to touch any sort of airspace. We couldn't do any type of equipment changes or get into big picture kind of things like that. With airspace modernization, everything's on the table for us now. So I think that is going to be the biggest difference. You're going to see the expanse of this project encompass a lot more things than just SID stars and approaches. You're going to see things such as EOR or Class B changes or just lots of stuff.
Absolutely. Just an unintended consequence for Metroplex was now Class Bravo excursions,
Right.
because we weren't inside the scope to adjust airspace after we did implementation of Metroplex projects. And so what we're doing now is almost coming back and correcting those at those facilities that had Metroplexes. And so while we didn't do that out in Hawaii, we have an opportunity holistically to come in and make every change that is beneficial and efficient for the Hawaiian Islands airspace. So I hope that touched base for you and clarified that difference. The timeline ultimately is one of the biggest pieces, but adjusting airspace after instrument flight procedure design is the big change to this project versus Metroplex.
How will commercial drone flights for agriculture and civil engineering surveying be addressed?
So anything that is outside of what's handled with flight standards, what's handled with COAs, et cetera, to go out and fly those, there's a process. And so we will not be changing that process. If that's happening inside of Class Bravo or Class Echo or between areas, that will still follow the same process as whatever airspace is designed and you're flying that drone in that specific airspace.
But if there's an opportunity for us to separate traffic patterns from known areas that drones are flying or that that type of activity is taking place, that's the type of stuff that we want to focus on and make sure that we're taking care of.
Good point.
Again, there was a question about where the slides from this presentation will be shown.
Okay, so this presentation was recorded and it will be located on our FAA website under airspace and modifications. I can't specifically remember the title of it. However, after tomorrow, we will email everyone that put their contact information into the chat box with the Google form link with the website address where this will be hosted. And so we expect in the next couple days that this will be uploaded to that website, and that's where it will be hosted. And anything future, you can follow along the project with that website, and we will mail out to everyone that provided an email address on that contact form or the chat box to update tomorrow once we get the notification back from our contractor with all the email addresses of participants for today.
And this one came from the chat. We're going to have to go through a few there. Because we are taking a holistic approach, should we also look at runway use before we build approaches and SIDs? Example, most airports depart the inboard and land the outboard. Look at departing runway 8 left, 26 right, landing 8 right, 26 left. Share runway 422, landing and depart.
That's an absolute on the point question. That is something that we do have people looking at today. We will be looking at in the future. And Dan, do you want to expand on that, or we're good just saying we are absolutely taking a look at efficiency and runway use?
Yeah, I think I believe Kevin Kuhn asked that question. So yes, we actually have MITRE doing a study right now on exactly that, Kevin, to evaluate it for both safety and efficiency. So I'm happy to say I think we're ahead.
Thanks, Dan.
There's been a request for the QR code to be shared again.
Okay, we will put that back up on the screen.
And in the chat also there's a link for the input form. So that was put in there at the request if somebody missed that in the chat. Here we go. Some more showing up. What about high altitude space flight, spaceport development? We're seeing interest as we did pre-2018 when we applied for a license, subsequently tabled.
Hey, Dan, do you want to take a shot at that?
Can you repeat that again?
Question is, what about high altitude space flight, spaceport development? We're seeing interest as they did pre-2018 when they applied for a license and subsequently tabled.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always have an obligation for new entrants. And I will tell you, space operations, particularly in the West Coast, have ramped up tremendously. There was a point in time where we were only doing maybe 4 space flights a year out of Vandenberg, and we accomplished that in a week easily on a pretty routine basis today. So the FAA, as the airspace authority, does have the responsibility to look at how we can integrate new entrants into the system. So we'll always do that. I know that there was a 2018 and 2019 request from multiple different entities for all kinds of different space operations. The short answer to that is we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. As a new entrant proposes activity, we will follow our standard process and evaluate what it would look like integrating them into the system.
Thank you, sir.
Will the AMR process impede any changes to current IFPs, etc.? While we are awaiting the lengthy process to complete, will any runway use changes be implemented prior to this time period as a separate project, or will that be tied to this timeline?
Dan, I'm going to kick that back over to you again, but before you answer, this will not impact current or amendments to instrument flight procedures that we have in play and we're going to be putting in place through here. At the end, everything we design will override or include changes we make between now and then.
Yeah,
Dan.
All right, Sarah, I appreciate the question. My answer is it's a little too early. I will say this. I do not anticipate AMR process will impede any of the instrument flight, any of the runway change flows that we are considering today. The runway change use that we're looking at is driven by safety and efficiency concerns. However, it's critically important, as you know, to have flight procedures integrated into any changes that we make. So it has to be a well thought out process. I don't expect anything to impede it. Just it has to be carefully thought through, and the procedures have to be designed if we make any changes. We're too early in the evaluation phase to determine what changes, if any, will be made.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
This seems like a very long timeline in comparison to other projects. Is that due to what we think the size and scale of the work will be?
Say again.
This seems like a long timeline in comparison to other projects. Is that due to what we think the size and scale of the work will be?
It is due to the rulemaking process. And once we design instrument flight procedures, and then we design airspace to contain or work with them, whether it's Maui or Honolulu, there's then timeline requirements for rulemaking that drive the length of the process. So an ad hoc committee is about a year to get through for industry to evaluate our initial design. And then we have some adjustments to the process. And then we have about 180 days that we have to get through the informal airspace meeting process that goes for 60-day comment. And then we have to make changes and evaluate and adjustments. And then we go through 60 days of notice to propose rulemaking. But that doesn't include the time that our policy department has to work on that to get it through legal, to get it ensure charting is going to work. So the long pole is that 18 to 36 months to get through evaluation that is predominantly driven by the rulemaking process and timelines.
And this timeline is extended in reference to Metroplex, really, because of the airspace changes. If we anticipate changes, if we get into here and don't have airspace changes, then that significantly shortens the timeline.
Yeah, we may not need to make changes at the airport. Well, we have class Bravo excursions, right? So there's an expectation that we're going to enter into that, but we're unknown at this time. We haven't drafted the scoping document. And so we are in the identifying phase. We are scoping and we need all the info to evaluate. Next, sir.
That is all that we have. I don't see any hands raised at
I
this.
saw one other,
Oh, you did.
from Commander, I can't pronounce his name, Sherry Fastback. The current plan with respect to Guyana still causes large disruptions to military activities, and we hope we can amend this corridor to improve joint operations.
Dan, over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the question, Commander. So we haven't turned on Guyana yet, haven't really used it. I think once we turn it on and do an evaluation process, we're always continuously evaluating any of our procedures and any of the work, certainly out here in Hawaii, to make sure that we're accommodating both the airline industry and our partners in the DoD. So it's always on the table. We want to partner and collaborate with all the entities described in this process to make sure we're doing the right things for the right reasons and making good decisions considering everyone that's involved.
Thanks, sir. All right. Less questions than I was expecting. So thank you everyone for those questions. When you do have the email address, if something else comes to mind and you're looking at it, we are going to utilize that Google input form, our email address, etc. Reach out and touch base with Chris and I. We're more than happy to engage. And so we want to thank everyone. But prior to that, we are going to go ahead, Bert.
Question just came through.
Yeah.
When will the next meeting be? Should we expect to reconvene on a regular basis?
So
That's a great question.
it really just depends on the entities that are out there. And so at this point, we will be accepting all of this scoping information through January 31st, 2026. When we get to where we've drafted our scoping document, and we get approval for that, my team will work with Raquel's team to host some sort of moving forward with the project. We will also be utilizing our website for updates to the project. So monitor that over once January 31st comes. We will be continually updating. Internal FAA will obviously have more questions, more meetings with all the entities that are out there that are air traffic related, the DoD, FAA, FCTs, air traffic control facilities. We will be having portfolio meetings over the next couple months to extract more data, have more conversations. If you're an HOA, you're elected official, your community, and you submit, and we need clarity on what the concern or issue is, we will reach back out via your contact information to have those. And so trying to answer that question on all the various different levels, hopefully that answered that. And if not, just reach out to us via the email. We will be happy to provide updates as we go through the process.
Yeah, I think you will start seeing routine updates from Brian and I come out after this meeting today. Obviously, since we get started moving forward, once we get into the scoping phase and stuff, we will certainly be reaching out to the affected parties to set up those work group meetings or discussions or portfolio meetings, whatever we'll need to do. But yeah, you can definitely expect that.
And so part of our scoping document includes our community engagement plan that we'll be working with Raquel's office. And so that plan will be a part of the scoping document outlining what we need to do and when we need to do it. And so when that update comes, you will see in that piece of how we're going to walk through the community engagement piece as well as the next phases of the project. Raquel, anything to add on to that?
Well, I was just going to re-emphasize the value of the early feedback from this scoping process. I think we really want to hear sooner rather than later, right? We would hate to be kind of downstream into your process and then find out suddenly later in the process that there were some issues or concerns from some particular area. So we are, I think, really looking for the attendees of today's meeting to spread the word and really get the public and whoever you think are important sources of information to inform the FAA so that we can get that input as soon as, as early in the phases as possible. And I will also offer my office as, obviously, Brian and Chris are really your go-to people, but our office certainly is available and willing to also support, if you have any questions or concerns, especially when it's like community and stakeholder engagement related. Feel free to reach out to us. I think at least I know the congressional offices know exactly how to get a hold of us. And if you send your questions to the email address that Brian and Chris have, and it's something that we specifically need to address, I know that they will send us that information. So I think there'll be a good flow of exchange in terms of like who's going to take on what particular issue. But, Brian and Chris, I think you guys did such a good job of sort of walking through all the opportunities for the stakeholders and more importantly, the public. I think that's kind of I would say that's a little bit newer in terms of our processes, right? Like literally we are going out to the public early in the process saying, please share with us your concerns so that we can take them into account in the process. So I hope that's helpful.
Man, perfect. All right, anything else? Question-wise? All right. So we're just going to do a little takeaways from our panel members. And so I will start with Terry. Is there any last comments or takeaways that you would like the audience to walk away with from your perspective as the senior area leadership team director and the director of the Western Service Center, or the chair, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Brian. I would just want to, again, kind of echoing what Raquel said, encouraging everyone to participate in this process. We really need your feedback and your comments as we go through this, so that we can, again, make sure that we are addressing the full picture in the scoping and really having a great product on the other end of this. So again, thank you for your time today, and as well, please stay engaged throughout this process and look for the updates as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Raquel, any last words from you, ma'am?
I once again want to thank everybody for participating in today's meeting. And I want to thank in advance for the folks who are going to help us spread the word in terms of what we're doing. I have to say, this is just such a great opportunity. It is very exciting. I hope that the stakeholders who are here kind of recognize what a great opportunity this is. We are going to improve aviation safety and efficiency in Hawaii. So important, long overdue. And in the process, we are taking into account stakeholder concerns. And so I really think that at the end of this process, even though it might take a long time, we are going to end up in a much better place for as many of our stakeholders as possible. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. And I really look forward to getting going. So great job, everybody.
Thanks, Raquel. Dan, Western Service Area Director of Operations, in charge of all air traffic facilities and controllers. Any last words, sir?
Well, as we started with the beginning of this meeting, it is an exciting time in the FAA, and this process that we have developed, I think, really brings all of the stakeholders to the table in a way that we have not done before, and really puts all of the regulatory airspace procedures a look in a holistic way that I have not seen done before. I'm excited about that, especially as a ongoing resident in Kaima'ana of Hawaii. I know how important this is for us and the changes that need to be made. And while there is ongoing work today as we speak, a lot of people working hard to update the equipment and move things on, this is really all of it pulled together is going to be a very, very big deal for the state in the modernization of our airspace finally. So looking forward to it, looking forward to everyone's involvement. I think it's going to be very critical for us to consider all aspects of this design. And I'm also excited, very excited to have Brian and Chris leading this effort for us. Very well respected gentlemen, have a lot of experience in this field, and I think they are going to bring a lot of lessons learned from other areas of the country to the table in this effort and help lead this to a successful outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Chris, my co-chair, NACA representative, NACA lead. Last words.
It's been a long time coming for this project. We've been talking about it for a long time. I'm super excited that it's finally here. And as everyone said, I'm truly excited for Hawaii and for the users of the Hawaiian airspace, because I think there's some really good possibilities out there waiting for them. So I'm glad to be a part of the project and look forward to working with them.
Absolutely. Just a couple last pieces highlight collaboration at all the levels, right? We have, even in this room, we have headquarters airspace representation from our bargaining unit leading the project as my co-lead. We got FAA management and National Air Traffic Controllers Association collaboration working through this project. It's exciting.
Yeah,
it is an incredible journey we're about to go on, and we're all looking forward to that piece as we implement and design and implement this monumental project. But with that, it is an extremely big project. Engagement at every level is important, and I want you to send those Google Forms input to us I want you to reach out to us looking for updates. This is a holistic project that we want your involvement in. We want the ownership from everybody so that we can make substantial changes that benefit everyone and look at it from all angles. And so with that, I want to thank everyone for their time. Appreciate all the questions. Roughly 170, 180 people dialed in throughout the meeting. That's an incredible attendance for something that we're putting on. And so appreciate it. We will send out an email tomorrow with the website, with the email, with the QR link. And with that, appreciate it. And everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.